Good morning, everyone. Hope that you guys are having a good start to your Monday. I hope that everyone enjoyed their weekend. And if you wanted to watch the Super Bowl, you got to watch that. I did watch it, and um, yeah. So the Eagles did indeed win. They won by a lot. Um, So yeah, I have three boys who we watched the game together, and one of them has decided seemingly that he's going to be like the Super Bowl party guy, because he was at like middle of the afternoon. He's like, we gotta get snacks. We gotta get snacks. He's 8. He's like, we gotta get this snack, and then we gotta get that, and then last year Aunt Jane made some sort of, I don't know, it was like salt bread, and so we had to figure out what salt bread was. We did, and it was like little pretzel bites. So what that meant was I had to learn how to make salt bread and pretzel bites last night, which I gotta say, they turned out not bad. You boil them in a little bit of baking soda for like 15 seconds, and then you throw them in the oven. They got good. They were good. Pat myself on the back for that one. But you guys at the moment are probably not as well. I don't know. You might be more interested in pretzel bites than the exam, but for the time being, oh, what is going on? For the time being, I'm gonna go ahead and talk about the exam that we've got coming up. Um, a couple of things this week. What I'm going to do is I'm going to give out a pair of quizzes rather than our usual 3 quizzes. I'm going to have 2 quizzes. One of them I'd prefer you to take and complete before the exam, and one of them after. And these are like participation. Please do them. They're basically just going to be questions of like what are you doing to prepare for the exam? Um, how much time are you putting into it? And kind of your confidence level. Just kind of like surveys of sorts, but they will count like all of our other quizzes have. There won't be any activities this week, which is why there aren't any activities posted on our Canvas site. Um, but yeah, so that's what you should expect. Now, with respect to our exam coming up this week, um, our exam is going to be, actually, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to use the annotate. I'm going to exit out of this share, and I'm just going to go back to the editable PowerPoint, and I'll just type it up. So then you don't have to worry about my poor handwriting, and it will probably be a little bit easier for you to read. Hopefully. Okay, so presentation 1, that's what I want you guys to see there. Okay, so exam number 1. It will be Wednesday. The Today is the 10th, so Wednesday, Feb 12th, during our regular class time. If you have accommodations for additional time, there's no issue there. There's no conflict there. Um, Now, what I think is the kind of most important thing to understand is that this is going to be administered using the two device. And what that means is that I always do ASDF just so I can keep a bullet point there, because this one I'm going to tab in a little bit. Two device method. One is going to be your laptop, desktop. I see a question. For questions that involve math, are we allowed to use paper and pencil to find our answers. Absolutely. Absolutely, you can bring scratch paper, and I'm going to get a little bit more into that in just one moment. So your first device will be your laptop slash desktop computer, and this will be, you can absolutely use a calculator. So scratch paper. Oh, scratch paper. Yes. Calculator. Yes. Okay, so laptop or desktop computer, that is going to be how you log in to Proctorio. Practice, exam, practice Proctorio. I got a question about a note card, and I'm going to come back to that in just a second. Practice Proctorio exam going up later today. The second device, phone or another laptop, whatever you choose. This is going to be how you log into our Zoom meeting. So you log into our Zoom meeting like always, and essentially, I'm going to use my phone as an example. I'm going to have my phone positioned to my right, just as a hypothetical. And this phone is going to be logged into Zoom, and it's going to be positioned so that this will be looking at my workspace. So I'm going to have it angled like right here. So whenever I look at the Proctorio video, what I'll see is your face and your second device. Whenever I look at your cell on Zoom, what I'll see is basically the desktop in front of you. Um, the reason for this is then I can see like basically what's on your screen, and so I can see kind of what your work area is. In addition to that, I have a question, a private message question about the note card. Note card. Oh. And this note card, yes. There are probably some people who are like, okay, what do you mean by note card? And what I mean by note card is, again, I'm going to do ASDF, um, 3x5. You can use an index card. You know, if you do like flashcards or something, I always had like a stockpile of index cards. Um, or 3x5 piece of paper. Um, you can use both sides. Proctorio will have you scan your workplace or your workspace periodically. I got a private message question about Proctorio. But, actually, I think I can disengage that function. I'm going to make a note for disable Proctorio area scan, because that would be unnecessary because I with the second device. So I got a private message question about the Proctorio settings, and I believe that I can disable that. I'm going to check. I will make sure to communicate that back. Um, okay. Can we use a whiteboard? That's fine with me. Absolutely. I presume what you mean by a whiteboard is one of those things that's, like this. If it's behind you, I'm just thinking that it might be difficult, like when you're moving around and stuff. If you have a whiteboard, a big whiteboard behind you, like attached to your wall or something like that, and you don't find it to be burdensome to like turn around and stuff, that's fine. I don't have any issues with that. Um, in the Zoom, just so you guys know, you will not see anyone else's cell, or you will not see into anyone else's screen, because there's this particular setting that I'm going to engage to make sure that everyone Yeah, only you guys are there. Then let's see. I got another question. If I don't get index cards by Wednesday, can I just use? Absolutely. Your note card can absolutely just be a piece of paper. And just so you guys are seeing you guys are seeing what I'm typing into the PowerPoint slide, right? Can I get a yay or a thumbs up? Okay, cool, cool. Okay. Another message I got was, I'm really sorry, I stepped out for a second. So can we only use the front and back? Use a note card for use a note card front and back for the test like a flashcard size? Yes. So 3 inches by 5 inches. And you can basically, this note card is going to have your, I'll call it what it, I hate to say cheat sheet because I don't think that it's cheating. I'm not going to call it a cheat sheet. I'm going to call it your supporting doc or your reference file. Yeah, I'll call it your supporting doc, reference doc. Um, what does Proctorio do? Great question. So what Proctorio does is it sees you. It's basically it makes a recording of what you're doing while you're taking the exam. So Proctorio needs access to your microphone and your webcam. Um, and it syncs that with basically how you navigate through the test. Um, so it is one exam proctoring system. Now, okay, if you move too much, great question. Um, so that's what Proctorio does. I got another question. If you move too much through though, Proctorio will kick you out. Um, I have never had that happen. And just so you guys know, um, Proctorio does not assign you a grade. So maybe there are some settings that you've had experience with where Proctorio does do something like that, but none of the settings that I have give your exam a score. What Proctorio does is it monitors you and then it will report back to me, hey, here's the recording. And we noticed that there were 5 people in the room whenever that person was taking the test. In which case, I'll be like, that's kind of weird. 5 people. What was going on? And I'll look at the video. And typically, what happens in that case is that someone's like taking their exam at a coffee shop. In which case, my personal preference, that's not what I would do. But they're in a coffee shop, they got headphones on. Okay, I have no qualms with that. I have no problem with that because that's like, you know, maybe you work right before or after class or our class, in which case you're like, the best thing for me to do is take this at Mochas and Javas, and then I can jump across campus or jump across Sesame, and then I'm at campus. I can take my class or take my next class. Okay, so we're going to be on our phones and only you can see us. Is that what you're talking about? The function you'd engage? You, so I got a question. Wait, so you're going to be on our phone? We're going to be on our phones and only you can see us. Is that what you're talking about? Yes, that is what I'm talking about. So whenever you look at the Zoom, so if you're on your device, if you get your phone, which it's positioned right here, so chances are you're not going to be like, oh, I got to check what's going on here. Um, when you look at it, what you would see is, you know, you would see like 20 different cells, 20 different black boxes with people's names on it. You wouldn't see anyone's face, but you're going to have your camera on so I can see your face. So I, as the kind of Zoom leader of sorts, I don't know why leader, but the Zoom proctor, I can see you, and you can see me, but you can't see anyone else. So no one else is going to be a distraction for that. Okay, front and back. Yes, so I'll rephrase that too. Okay. My desktop does not have a camera. Should I use a laptop instead for the exam? Yes. So what I would do is, so this is whenever I'm talking about the two device method, one of those devices is going to be the one that you're taking your exam on. And so I'll add in here the device you are taking the exam. Then are we going to have definition questions? Um, so I got this is kind of a content question, which is awesome. Um, are we going to have definition questions? So what I think that you mean by, or what I'm reading that to mean is if I said something like the question stem is this subatomic particle has a positive charge, you would select the answer proton. And that would be the sort of definition question that I'm looking for. I hope that answers your question. Can I explain the supporting document again? Absolutely. So, this supporting document is going to be, or this supporting document, reference document, whatever you want to call it, you can write anything and everything that you want to help you on this exam. If you, and I'll give you a couple of options on where to go with this. Um, let's say that you decide, hey, you know what? I've got a printer and I have a um, Word doc or a Microsoft Word document or a Google document that I'm going to open up. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to type every term that we learned about this semester so far. I'm going to print those in size 8 font. And so in that one 3x5 piece of paper, so keep in mind I'm printing it up and then I'm going to cut it into a 3x5 piece of paper. And I'm going to, on front and back, basically get all of the important terms and definitions that I need as my reference. So then whenever you're taking your exam and you see that question that's like, this subatomic particle has a positive charge, you'd be like, I think it's electron, but oh no, it's proton. I know it's proton because I typed that previously. So that's what that's for. I hope that answers the question about the supporting document. If not, please follow up. What if we don't have access to a second device? It's a great question. In the event that you do not have access to a second device, please contact me, and we will figure something out. So I'll resolve that as needed. For the second device, typically I've had people use their phones, people use a tablet, any number of things. Okay, how many questions from each subject are you putting? Like how our quizzes have five. Sorry if that doesn't make any sense. I believe that does make sense, and I'll answer it. I hope that if it doesn't, just follow up. Um, the way that I'm looking at our material is, and actually, you know what? I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to go on to make another slide. But before I do, um, okay, don't worry about there are no poll questions today, and right now we have 99 people in the Zoom. And whenever I say this, if that number plummets, then okay. So I have a log of everyone who's joined the Zoom, and that's basically how you're going to, you know, be awarded those points. So just because today's kind of a review, so if you have to leave, you can leave. Um, was the review posted? I posted the practice exam. Um, And so that I believe I posted an announcement that said, "Hey, the practice exam is up." Um, I will make sure that that link is more accessible. If you go into quizzes, though, it should be there. I'll follow up with another post about that as well as the Proctorio practice exam. Okay, now with that in mind, okay, so now I'm going to go on to, or sorry, does anyone have any other questions about kind of the logistics of the exam? Not necessarily the structure, but the like, can I use a piece of paper? Can I use a pen? Do I have to use a pencil? Blah, 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 those sorts of questions. I'm going to get into questions and I'm going to give you an overview of what the exam's going to consist of on the next slide. Um, if you've got follow-up questions, please don't hesitate to add them in the chat and I'll slide back or I'll jump back to the previous slide. Is there anything we aren't allowed to have on the note card? Um, I got to be honest, I only have kind of snarky responses for that. So no, I you can put whatever on there that you want. This is like, what do you want to, what do you think is going to be most helpful? Um, okay. Will we get immediately graded? That's a great question. Usually what I do is I wait about 2 hours or so to release all the exam grades. Um, and so that's just because what I like to do while I'm administering an exam, or sorry, after I've administered an exam, is go back through and make sure that every one of the questions that I have keyed is keyed correctly. Um, but after that, I'll release your scores and I'll release your results. I'll release your scores, and then you can look at the questions that you got right and the questions that you got wrong. Would you say that? Okay, so that answers that. Would I say the practice exam is almost identical to the exam? I would not say identical. What I would say about the practice exam is if, let me go, I'm going to say practice exam is not identical to actual exam. And I'm taking that word identical in a literal way. So I'm not sure about your definition of identical, but I would say that an identical practice exam and actual exam would be question number one asks about, you know, sodium chloride. 1 mole of sodium chloride is how many grams? And then on the actual exam, the question is 1 mole of sodium chloride is this many grams. That would be identical. And I'm not writing an identical exam. However, let's say practice exam, I'm going to say PE, uh, question number one. Let's say that question is 14.3, what what mass of NaCl is, or how many grams of NaCl are in 14.3 moles of NaCl? Okay, so that's our hypothetical practice exam question number one. And then I'm going to say AEQ number one. This would be how many grams of, let's go with NH3. I put that as a subscript. Are are in 22.6 moles of NH3. I think that this is a reasonable way to interpret the practice exam. Now, my question for you guys, when you look at these two questions, are they identical? No, they're not. If you know how to do one, I mean, give me a thumbs up or a yes in the chat. Do you know how to do the other? Yes. The structure, the process is the same. So my response to, are they identical? No. Are questions on the practice exam used to build out the actual exam? 100%. My my thought process is I want to give you questions that you have a reason to try them and understand them and be able to answer them correctly. Okay. Um, I hope that answers your questions there. Uh, then next up was, what if we join late? Can we start the test whenever? Um, the exam, this is very similar to a traditional in-person lecture class. Um, if you come into class late, then you have a limited amount of time. Um, if I remember correctly, so when it comes to I'm gonna add this here. And I think actually I've got a little bit of time on the front end. So I will have Proctorio and Zoom open. I'll say as early as 9:15. So if you want to start early, you're welcome to. Um, when it comes to quizzes, there are two functions. There's due and until. So the exam is due at, I think that it's 10:50 a.m. and it is open until I believe that might be 11:10 a.m. Now, with that in mind, see there I lost my but time. So I want to give you a couple of situations just so I can hope make this always gets kind of confusing and murky, and I apologize for that, everyone. Um, okay, so let's go with hypothetical. You join class ugh, and start the exam at, let's say, 9:15. Add to the chat what time your exam will close. Okay. Keep in mind, you have an hour and 20 minutes to do the exam. So these all kind of like supersede everything. So I'm happy that we're clearing this up right now. Everyone, we had a couple of things added to the chat of 10:35, 10:50, 11:10. If you start your exam at 9:15, your exam at 10:35 a.m. because you have an hour and 20 minutes. Um, then if I do, okay, so what that means is let's go with another hypothetical. Let's say you sleep in and you join class at, let's go with 10:30. What time will your exam close if you join at 10:30? Perfect. Perfect. 11:10. Okay. So essentially, what to me that boils down to is if you want to have the full hour and 20 minutes, then the latest that you should start the exam is, well, subtract back. Okay, so 11:10, take away 20 minutes is 10:50. Haley's on top of it. Haley says 9:50 is the latest that you should start your exam if you want the full amount of time. Want the entire 1 hour and now, in the event that you have additional time or added time accommodations, um, your calculation changes a little bit. And I will yours, yeah, yours changes a little bit because you have added time. Okay, now I have to scroll back up in the chat, make sure I answer questions. If I do the practice exam, what if we joined late? Okay, I've addressed that. Um, if I do the practice exam multiple times, will it help me a lot? I believe so. Um, I did get, and I'm sorry about this, I did get an email that there were some questions that seemingly are keyed incorrectly, and I need to fix those, and I'm going to send out, after I fix those, I'm going to send out an announcement about those. So fix. So I sincerely apologize for that. Um, will we get our exam right after? Um, no, you will not. I like to delay it like an hour or two. How many questions is it? Great question. Okay, so 40 questions. So you could look at that as 2 minutes per question. Let's see. Quizzy question. Um, can we have a piece of scratch paper to do our calculations on? Yes, you can. How many questions is it? 40 questions. Um, then how will you access the periodic table? There will be a periodic table on every question that requires the periodic table. And in the event that you see a question that doesn't require the periodic, or sorry, a question that requires the periodic table, but the periodic table is not in there, well, you can just scroll back because I do not have Canvas set up where, you answer a question, then you move on. Instead, it's like it basically just shows up as one kind of long web page. Okay, so we talked about those things. Then would I say it's easy? Um, I would. I would say that, and I don't mean that in like I'm not looking at that as like, well, Joel, you've taught this class and you've taken these chemistry classes. I would say it's easy because I like to ask questions in a very direct fashion. And what I mean by that, this right here is a good hypothetical question that I'll ask. Or sorry, let me highlight this one. That's a very direct question. Um, there's not a lot of ways that, in my opinion, that can be misinterpreted. Um, so I'm not going to, I don't like to throw lots of like, oh, this could be answered 6 different ways. Um, is that a lot of math questions are like multiple choice definition questions? I would say, oh, that's a great question. And just so everyone knows, you guys have been asking fantastic questions this entire semester. So anytime I say like that's a great question, I'm not saying it like that's a great question. The last one wasn't very good. I appreciate the questions that you guys have been asking. They've been fantastic. Um, so I would say of the 40 questions, maybe around 8 to 10 are, I'll say mathy. And some of those they're going to range in their difficulty. Some that you should kind of anticipate and expect are, one example of a mathy question might be scientific notation. Convert from full, convert. It's weird that PowerPoint underlines the word mathy. Convert from full notation to scientific notation. Scientific notation. Um, so that's kind of my assessment there. Will I be sharing notes after class through mail? I'll post this in just a second. Yeah, I've been grabbing the notes. This PowerPoint I will put up on our Canvas page. Um, you said that there would be a periodic table provided. Yup. And the formulas are going to be listed somewhere. We haven't really looked at too many formulas so far. Will it be sharing the slides? Yep. So formulas for calculating like, do you mean formulas like the symbols in the periodic table? Because I'll give you those, but in terms of doing mole conversions, um, that's you guys gotta, that's one of the trickier parts. This is probably answered in the first few minutes, but is going to be 100% multiple choice. There will be no open-ended questions. I'm happy that you asked this because I gotta highlight this, cut, and I'm gonna add a little detail here. I'm gonna say 3 to 5 will be multiple select questions. And when you see, okay, so molar mass conversion, those will be, you'll have to recall those and process that information from the periodic table. So in terms of like, you have to kind of go from, okay, well, we're asked for 15 grams of this substance. How many moles is that? Well, I have to figure out how many grams there are per mole. So that's part of that. Now, with that in mind, let me go ahead and I'm going to switch to writing, and I want to give you guys kind of a set, basically. This is kind of a set of questions that you should expect on the exam. I'm going to annotate. This is not working there. Um, so sorry, I gotta move some things around. Could we write a conversion? Yep, absolutely. Your reference doc is your reference doc. Um, put on there whatever you want. So let's go ahead and I'll give you kind of a set of questions that you might see. Let's say question 1. It would be, yes, the reference doc is the note card. Thank you for asking that. So that note card, that index card, that 3.5 or sorry, 3 inch by 5 inch piece of paper, you can write on that whatever you want on there. This lecture is being recorded and it is going to be posted. And I'll throw the notes from this. I collect the transcript from all the lectures, so I'm gonna get that transcript. And I always try to like sum it up a little bit, so I'll throw that on our Canvas page as well. And in the event that anyone is curious about that at all, and I'm sorry I'm all over the place today. I apologize. I'll blame it on the Super Bowl. Not really, but you know, there we go. Um, okay, so I want to share this. This is a snapshot of our Canvas page coming soon. Um, I've included these days summaries. And if you click on any one of those, that's where I basically go through our transcript, the recorded transcript from the Zoom meeting, and I basically throw down the important points from that class period. Are there questions about Dalton and his theory versus what we know to be true? That's a great question. That would be, there might be questions about, okay, the most likely question that I'm going to be asking about related to Dalton would be, I would put Dalton as the context. And I would say, like, John Dalton had an atomic theory which has led us to this current understanding. Um, so it's not going to be like John Dalton said this, but now we know this to be true. Not really those compare contrast questions. I'm not going to really ask those. I don't think that I'd ask that sort of question. Um, okay. So anyway, I'm going to do one of these basically for you know, today's lecture is as well. So this is just important points from the day as well as some study suggestions, maybe what you can do to kind of help yourself out. Now, with that in mind, I'm going to jump back to my PowerPoint because I want to give you guys kind of a sequence and like a series of questions that you should anticipate related to molar mass and mole conversions. And thank you guys so much for all these questions. I really appreciate it. So, question one might be something like the molar mass of NH3. And if I remember NH3 correctly, that's why I'm selecting it. So if I remember correctly, it's like 15. So we'll say A, B, C, D. And your answer options would be something like 15, 4, then 19, and let's go with 27. Okay. And some of these questions are, well, there's a reasonable or there's a justifiable reason that 15 is there, 4 is there, 19, 27. But the correct answer for this would be 15. Okay. So how are you solving that? Well, you're looking at the periodic table and you're getting the mass of nitrogen and the mass of three hydrogens and adding it together. Each hydrogen is 1. The mass of nitrogen, if I remember correctly, is 12. So that's kind of where that's all coming from. Now, question number two would be something like um, you have 1 mole of NH3, and this is an important word that I like to include in this is NH3 molecules. You can't print the periodic table. I'm gonna include it on the on your exam. So you will have a periodic table to use. And I just do that because there are some that, they include unnecessary information. I'm going to give you a minimalist one because it's more direct and it has the information that you need to answer the questions on the exam. You have 1 mole of NH3 molecules. How many do you have? And the answers would be A, B, C, D. 1, 4, then 1,000, and 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. And the correct answer for this, what I'd want you to do is be able to look at this and say, okay, I've got 1 mole. Oh, dang it, that's not what I wanted to do. I've got 1 mole of this something. And the important or the key word in this question is molecules. Well, if I have 1 mole of anything, if I have 1 mole of pencils or of iPhones, that means I have 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. So this question is 1 mole of NH3 molecules. Well, D is going to be my correct answer. Question number 3. And sorry, I'm going to be consistent with my notations here. Question number 3 would be something like, how many moles of, let's go with CH4 do you have in 326 grams of CH4? And so in order to answer that question, what you'd have to do is, oh, sorry, I apologize, everyone. I need to go back for a second to my first question. Um, I selected the wrong answer. So that would be the molar mass of nitrogen that's seen on the periodic table, which I'm going to display right now. You can see that the molar mass of nitrogen is 14.007. So now I need to go back to my previous or my slides and change that. So the molar mass of nitrogen, or NH3, I'm sorry, would be 14 plus 3 plus 3 plus 3. Or sorry, 14 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. So 17. Okay, there we go. Now, I hope that wasn't a distraction for everyone. Um, then let's see, question A, B, C, D. How many moles of CH4 do you have in 326 grams of CH4? Okay, so your answer options would be 1, 6.02 times 10 to the 23rd. Um, let's go with 326. And then my last good option, I'm going to show you how to do this question. Be 326 grams of CH4. Okay. So in order to answer this question, we'd have to know what is the mass of 1 mole of CH4. Because on the top, I'm going to write 1 mole CH4. And on the bottom, I'm going to write the mass of 1 mole of CH4, which is approximately 16. So I would say 326 divided by 16. I'm going to get my calculator out here. Calculator, calculator. Clear, clear. 326 divided by 16 equals. I'm going to go with 20.38 because 20.375. That'd be your correct answer there. Okay, so this right here, that's 3 questions. Are you going to have one? And answer in the chat. Are you going to have one very similar to question number 1? A Y or a thumbs up or a clown emoji? Any number of emojis work. Yeah, I'm seeing lots of Ys. I understand that. No emojis. Respect. Are you going to have... There we go. Thank you, Emma. Clown emoji. Are you going to have one like question 2? John, clown emoji. Awesome. Sophia, straight face emoji. Respect. Or that's like the Debbie Downer clown emoji. Has anyone ever seen the Debbie Downer skits from Saturday Night Live? If you haven't, they're hilarious. Okay, good. Um, are you going to have a question like question number 2 on here? Yes, 100%. And then, are you going to have something like question number 3? Yes, 100%. Are you going to have these exact questions on the exam? No. But are they going to follow the same process? Yes. Are you going to need the periodic table for these? Yes. Emma, you betcha. Um, I will post this PowerPoint. And, that's, I would say that this is why I'm looking at maybe like 8 to 10 math related problems. Because if this is 3 of them, you know, just so we're on the same page, I hope that you guys don't look at me as like, oh, this is that guy who's trying to basically make science no fun so that I have to take a science class and I try chemistry for a little bit, but then I say, forget it, I'm going to go do geology. I hope that you don't look at me that way. If you do, okay, okay. But I hope that you enjoy this class. Now, with all of that in mind, I want you to do well. There are some things that I think are like, okay, this is like question number 1 right here. That to me is a really good foundational thing for you to do and do well. Question number 2 is like a next level sort of question. Question number 3 is that third level. Just like, and this might sound cliche, but just like building a house, just like establishing a relationship, what do you have to have a very strong, or what's a very strong thing that you have to have for a good relationship, for a good house, for a good understanding of anything? I'll give you a hint. It starts with an F and it ends with an foundation. Exactly. I want you guys to have a good foundation. So if you look at these 3 questions and you're thinking, oh man, he might ask us different, or he might ask us more of one of these. I'm probably going to ask you two of that question number ones, variations of that same thing. So to me, what that is that's foundational learning. And that is, okay, well, you have to, when you look at the periodic table, I don't want you to look at it and be like, oh man, it's beautiful. So many colors. Fantastic. I want you to look at it and be like, oh, okay, um, I can extract some information from that. I can calculate a molar mass. So if you look at these three questions and you're like, could he give us additional versions of one of these? Yeah. And chances are I'm going to give you at least two of that question number one. Earlier, somebody asked me if I think that the test is easy. My answer was yes. And not in like a, excuse my language, but not in a smart ass way. I don't like swearing very much. But in a, like, we've talked about this, and I think that you guys know how to do that question number one. I feel confident that you guys can do that question number one. Can you add to the chat a any emoji or emoticon if you can agree that you know how to do question number one? Okay, 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 okay. Robot, I like it. Okay, good. So I want you guys to do well on this. And I know that when I prompted you to put an emoji in there, lots of people were like, okay, I got to pick a good one. Hmm. I understand. I understand. Okay, so does anyone have any other questions about the exam? Because if there aren't any other questions, I'm going to go ahead and tell you guys to have a great day. Um, Thank you very much for coming to class. I've got office hours today at 12:30. I'll have office hours or um in any time between now and your exam. If you want to meet up, just drop me a line and say, "Hey, can we meet? I've got this issue to resolve." Whether it's I only have one device, what can I do? Um, do you have to have a good understanding of the spectral lines? That's a great question, and not really. What I want you to know about the spectral lines is what they tell you. They tell you that electrons are positioned in different energy levels. Different electrons have different energies. That's a great question. Can I go over electron configurations? I absolutely can. If you don't have any questions and you just want to hang around, by all means, hang around. Um, I have to, but if you want to go and fall back asleep or something, go fall back asleep. If you got questions that you'd like to ask me later, then just drop me an email and we can set up a time sometime tomorrow. I don't think that there's anything that I have going on tomorrow that prevents any sort of meeting or anything like that. But I hope you guys have a great rest of the week and hear me now. Believe in yourself going into this exam. Why? Because I believe in you. And if you don't believe in you, but you believe in me, believe in yourself because I believe in you. Okay. So I'm going to continue to record this. Um, Thanks, Lisa. That's great. Okay. So what we got, electron configurations. So I always kind of think about electron configurations um, as basically a question about where are electrons? Um, we don't have a calculator. We got to figure something out about other than a phone. But you know what? Actually, if try to find a calculator between now and your exam. I think that I think there's a calculator in Proctorio. I will check on that. Fixed practice. Okay. Thank you, Melanie. Yeah, I believe that you can check out a calculator from the library. Um, Alternatively, I will check about if Proctorio has a calculator. Um, Dang. So Lindsay, great question. Yeah, I know on the phone, but I think that either Proctorio, you can use a calculator, or we can figure something out where you can use the calculator app in your computer. So great question. I'll follow up on that though. Okay, so electron configurations. The question that you're really answering is where are the electrons? And um, what you're trying to do is build an atom. We know that when it comes to an atom has your subatomic particles, protons, neutrons, and electrons. Two of these, protons and neutrons, they make up your nucleus. And these two things that make up your nucleus, well, they basically have all the mass. Your neutrons just kind of review material, and neutrons have no charge. Your protons, p protons, are positive, and your electrons are your negative things. So these things that make your nucleus, they're at the center. So I always like to draw, here's a X and Y axis, and then draw this just because I'm doing this in 3 dimensions. That dashed line is going backwards, sort of into the screen, and then this dashed line that I'm drawing is coming out of the page, sort of towards me. So this is basically 3D or 3 dimensions, Y, X, and your Z plane. So whenever you hear about something in 3D as opposed to in 2D, well, that's what we're talking about. We have depth. So at the exact center here, if you think back to, I think I remember learning about line graphs in like fourth grade. That's our origin. And at that origin, that's where we're going to find the nucleus. And for this, we're not really worried about the nucleus. I'm going to draw that line there, and now I'm going to erase it. If I have the erase function. Nope, that's not working that way. I got that line there. Now I've erased it. My nucleus is in the exact center. Now, the question is, where are my electrons? Now, as an atom, so let's say that you had something like, and I'm going to draw a couple of different symbols here. We've got hydrogen. Hydrogen has an atomic number of 1. And then let's go with gallium, Ga. Gallium has an atomic number. Okay, this is good information to know for kind of um, the shapes and thinking about subatomic particles. This X, Y, and Z plane, I don't want you to get distracted by that. I just use that to provide, like, here's the kind of background information, the context. Gallium has 31. Now, this sort of question, this is a good question to be able to answer for the exam. If you see, and I'm going to go ahead and build both of these in, hydrogen is 1 and 1.008. Gallium is 69.723. I do not expect you to be able to recall gallium or anything like that. But if I gave you this symbol right here, what I would want you to be able to do is say, how many protons does gallium have? A single atom of gallium has 31 protons. Now, that is an important question to be able to answer. Now, let's say that if I gave you this number right here, 69.723, and I asked the question, well, mass is protons plus neutrons. Why is it a decimal? Does that mean that you have 31 protons and 38 0.723 neutrons? No, that's not what that means. Instead, what that decimal number means is that the decimal number means um, there are isotopes. So different atoms with different masses, so different numbers of neutrons. So that's what that decimal number means. Now, what's really important for this question in terms of electron configuration is, well, I'm going to draw a hydrogen atom and I'm going to place the one electron of hydrogen. It's a little red dot. And if you're looking at this on your mobile device, it's probably hard to see that little red dot, but that little red dot, basically, I'm going to draw in a different color, kind of the path that that little red dot follows. And I'm going to go with a orange. This dot just kind of, it just kind of flows all around. It's attracted to the nucleus, and then it's not attracted to the nucleus. Now I see a longer question. I understand the subshells, but how about if we find, uh, okay. So one, I have to look back at that question. Um, I understand the subshells, but how to find 1sp, 2sp? I'll have to look back at that question because that might have been mistakenly added. I will look back at that question. So, um, I think that was, I think I might have added that question before we actually, so I apologize. That, in terms of electron configurations, I'm sorry, I've got to remove that one. So what you guys need to know, um, oh goodness, this question about config. Um, I apologize. I'm sorry about that. That's really embarrassing. I need to I'm not going to be asking about electron configuration like 1sp, 2sp, 2 and so on. Sorry about that. Um I wrote that and then we went over this stuff in class and I wrote it before yeah, so I'm sorry. That will not be on the exam. What I need you guys to know is like the shapes. Um and where electrons can potentially be. So what I mean by that is um, a question would be something like, does hydrogen have any electrons in a p subshell? And the answer to that would be no, it does not. Because hydrogen's single electron can exist, or where can hydrogen's single electron exist? In that spherical region, in that single sphere. Only when we go beyond, or only when we get to something like gallium. Well, if you look at the periodic table, where is gallium? Gallium's in the p block. So gallium has s electrons and p electrons. I'm going to look back at that quiz question and that practice exam question. So I apologize for that. So now that I found the source of my mistake, does is this explanation for electron configurations what we were looking for there? Okay. So I apologize, Melanie, about the 1SP. Yeah, I'm I'm sorry. Um, okay. So there will not be a 1 SP, 2 SP. There will not be a question like that on your actual exam. Okay, cool. Um, are there any other questions? Well, I'm going to go ahead and stop my recording.